Welcome to the Better Workday Podcast with your host, Niamh Moynihan. With so much work to get done in the day, I find I'm often working 3 or 4 hours straight, yet by the end, I feel like I haven't been as productive as I could be. Niamh, why are micro breaks so important and how can I include them in my workday?
Hello, and welcome back to the Better Workday Podcast. This week I am talking about micro breaks, and I'm very excited about this topic because I believe they can be the secret ingredient or the superpower to help you create a better workday, even when things are really busy. But I'll have to be honest with you, for a long time I totally dismissed micro breaks. And honestly, I didn't really rate breaks at all. So for most of my career, I was always keen to finish the break as quickly as possible to get back to work. And unless my eyes were burning in my sockets and my stomach was literally walking itself to the canteen, I would always try and fit in one more task. But if there's one thing that multiple burnouts have taught me is that sometimes we need to slow down. And if we don't take a break, well, then we're going to break. And so I have adopted breaks, and surprisingly to myself, they're great. So since I've started taking breaks and taking them regularly, I found that my productivity has improved, my performance has improved, I'm enjoying work more. And this isn't over the last couple of months. I made this change a couple of years back, and the change has been sustained. And whenever I slip back, I really feel the difference. And in this episode, I want to focus on micro breaks because I feel they can be achieved regardless of how busy you are at work. And micro breaks are short, intentional pauses during work that help reset your mind and body. They can be up to 10 minutes long. And I'm going to talk about two different types. So, task switching is one, and then a complete break is the other, and they're slightly different. So, let's begin by discussing why micro breaks matter, especially on the busy days. Well, studies show that people who take regular micro breaks tend to have better focus and make fewer mistakes. And that's because fatigue sets in after about 20 to 30 minutes of sustained focus. And when you take a short break, you can reduce that fatigue and also improve your concentration and come back to work fresh. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely had those days where I tried to power through the work and I made silly mistakes, on the spreadsheet or on a Word document or in a presentation or even in a conversation. And it's something that I wouldn't normally have done. It's a mistake I would normally have made. And that's because I hadn't been taking the breaks and mentally I'm getting quite tired. So, as well as looking after our well being, those short breaks really help us to perform our best throughout the day. And of course, they're not a replacement for your full lunch break, but they do play an important role. And there's two types of micro breaks, as I mentioned, and the first is task switching. And now this became very popular with remote and hybrid working. So, task switching is basically instead of stopping work completely, you switch to a different type of task. So, for example, instead of answering emails, you could read a report, or instead of updating a spreadsheet, you could brainstorm some ideas. Or in the case of hybrid and remote working, instead of answering emails, you could put on a wash or you could empty the dishwasher. So you're doing a different type of task. And especially in the second examples where you're doing something in terms of housework, you're getting up and you're moving the body as well. And so the benefits of these task switching breaks are it refreshes the mind because you're basically focusing on something else and then you're coming back to the original task with more focus. And it's really good if you enjoy having variety of a lot of different responsibilities because you get to build that through your day. But some of the things you can do is ensure that the tasks are contrasting in nature to prevent the same overuse of the same skills. So, for example, you wouldn't go from updating a spreadsheet, which is very data focused, maybe, to then analyzing a database report, right? So, you do something a little bit different if you could. But the one thing about the task switching that I suppose you should be mindful of, to be quite honest with you, is if you do it, you have to make sure you come back to the original task. Okay. So what happens is you could, for example, be working on a report and then you decide to take a short break from it and you're going to go and check your email or you're going to go and tidy up downstairs, right? For example, for 5 or 10 minutes. When you come back from that break, it's important you go back to what you're working on, because a lot of people will go to something else because, maybe there's notification or you've thought of a different task you need to do or something else has come to your mind. And in this case, what happens is you might complete 2 or 3 or 4 other things before you go back to the original task, and you might not go back to it at all that day. And so your to-do list ends up carrying over a lot of work from one day to the next. So if you are using task switching micro breaks, what I want you to do is, before you take the break, to write down what you are working on. And when you come back from the break, ask yourself the question, what was I working on? And look, just to kind of reiterate, I think when work is very, very busy and you're finding it hard to stay focused and to, make your way through the day, I think switching up the tasks between different types of work is a really, really good way to bring in variety and to help you stay motivated and stay energized during the day. With that being said, you do need to take full breaks from work, because even with the task switching, you're still working, and we do need to fully disengage and reset to help reduce stress and to restore our physical well-being and our emotional well-being, okay? So a full break or a complete break is a short intentional pause from any work-related tasks, focusing instead on rest or non-work activities. And I would include housework and household chores in that. And the reason I say that is because you need time for you to rest and relax and restore. And if you're doing bits and pieces around the house or around the office, you mightn't be at your desk, but you're still working. Okay, so I do want a few breaks for you within the day. And an example of something you could do would be just to go for a stretch, to go for a walk around, or look out the window from the screen for a few minutes, or take a little bit longer making your cup of tea or coffee, right? So it doesn't have to be any big fancy thing, but just take a few minutes for you. And, when you do this, it does improve creativity because it gives you a chance to rest and refresh, and it helps reduce stress. And if you want to make the most of these breaks, keep them short and structured. For example, 2 to 5 minutes. And 2 minutes mightn't seem long, but trust me, if you put your phone away and you're focusing on moving or looking away from screens, 2 minutes can actually feel like a really good break. And I do recommend having that physical movement because that enhances blood circulation and reduces all the risks associated with prolonged sitting. So that's really good as well. So for me, what I do is, I take the long way around when it comes to leaving my desk and coming back from my desk. So at home, because it's significantly smaller than an office, it would mean going downstairs, making my cup of tea, then going out the back and maybe drinking half the cup of tea out there, and then coming back in and maybe walking out to the front of the house and looking out the front window before going back into the kitchen, put back down the cup, and then walking back up to my desk. So it's nothing fancy, but I'm just trying to get as many steps in instead of getting up, walking straight down, making the cup of tea and walking straight back up to the desk. It's just building in a little bit more movement in that. And that'd take me an extra minute or two, and that's plenty. So just to compare the two different types of micro breaks, the task switching and the complete break, both of them help improve focus, reduce your errors and combat that mental fatigue that builds up over the day, okay? And they both prevent burnout, and they do, as I said, improve your performance over time. But the task switching doesn't offer a full mental reset, whereas a complete break does. And those complete breaks are essential for disengagement. So what I'd recommend is a mix of them depending on what's happening in your day and how you're feeling. And one of the easiest ways to integrate a micro break into your day is to use the Pomodoro technique. And that is working for 25 minutes and taking a 5-minute break. And I do have a previous episode on some different ways you can use the Pomodoro technique actually. So I will link that in the notes. And another thing you could do is you could set reminders on your phone or in your calendar for every half an hour to pause and to take a break. In reality, I see people setting those reminders for once or twice in the morning and once or twice in the afternoon. And you could also take advantage of shorter meetings. So if a meeting finishes after 25 minutes, you can choose to use the last 5 minutes to take a break instead of rushing straight into your next task. And also, quite simply, just to be mindful of your body's cues. If you're getting distracted a lot, you probably need a break. If you're getting irritable, you probably need a break. If your shoulders are getting tight, the back of your neck is getting tight, I get a lot of tension down at the base of my head, kind of connected to my neck, you need a break. If your eyes are getting tired, and they just feel like they're super dry and irritated, you need a break. So all of these are signs that you need to step away from the screen for a few minutes. And the best you can do is listen to your body, take that break and come back. And if you're in a management or team lead role, you could have team-based breaks. And something as simple as sending a message out on Teams or on Slack to say, taking a micro break, see you in 5, could be enough to remind others that they couldn't take their break as well. And when you're working from home, that I think is really, really important. So look, in summary, I love a micro break. No matter how busy the day is, you can find 2 minutes for yourself a couple of times in the morning and a couple of times in the afternoon. And sometimes you're going to switch from one thing to the other, and that's fine. But I do really want to make sure that you take some moments for you during the day as well. And I think for this one, I just want you to experiment with the different types of breaks and find the balance that works best for you, works best for your job. So I hope that's helpful. The next podcast episode is going to be a bit of a meaty one because I'm going to be discussing the results of the 2024 Better Workday survey. So I hope that you tune back in to listen to that. But in the meantime, please share this episode with a friend or colleague that might find it helpful. And until next time, stay well, take your breaks, and have a better workday.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. The Better Workday podcast is about helping you have a better workday, so we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. You can find our social media details as well as any references from this episode in the show notes.